You are listening to the Estheticians Earning More podcast with Brittany Hageman, episode number 110. Welcome to the Estheticians Earning More podcast. On this podcast, we talk about how to love your esthetician business without the hustle, exhaustion, or overwhelm as it booms into a successful business. I teach simple ways how to approach your business that gives you your life back while still growing a profitable business. I grew BLH Beauty in San Diego to a 6-figure business, and I learned a lot along the way, which I'm excited to share with you here. So let's get started. Hi, how are you? It feels very bizarre and weird and wonderful to be back talking to you. I use Spotify to record my podcast. Even like the platform look has changed. That just feels like how long it's been since I've been here. But thank you so much for waiting for me to come back. I had no intention of taking a break this long, but life happened and I decided to spend time healing and, processing my life. For those of you who don't follow me on Instagram or just missed it, shortly after we moved here to Georgia, the very beginning of June, I had to make the excruciating decision to put my almost 16-year-old Black Labrador down. Actually, this week, July 5th, was supposed to be her 16th birthday. I totally thought she was going to make it to 16, even though the last year, like from 15 on, especially the last 6 months, she definitely was declining rapidly. I didn't think she was going to die that quickly, or we were going to have to put her down that quickly. So it did feel like a shock to me. For me, one of the things that has been the most painful about her death is the actual death itself, like putting her down. I didn't mean to get into this quickly, but here we are. I don't know if you've ever put an animal down before, but I've done it twice. I did it with my childhood dog, and I had sworn up and down I would never do it with my dog. Her name was Tawny, because she was my dog, and I didn't ever want to do it again. It was just the most awful experience the first time I did it. And my dad and my husband both promised me for sure that they would do it. And then, of course, we moved out of the Bay Area, which is where I lived and my dad lives. And so he couldn't be there. And my husband, of course, had left that morning for a trip. And I considered strongly waiting until he got home because although I did believe it was time for her to be put down, like we could have given her some medication and waited 3 to 4 days until my husband got back. But ultimately I decided that like my suffering, I couldn't put I had to put her suffering first, and I couldn't let her suffer more than me. Like I was going to suffer either way, like putting her down. And I knew, of course, putting her down and being in the room with her was going to be awful. And it was absolutely awful. I just that was the thing that was the most gut-wrenchingly painful for me that I feel better about now that it's been a month. I can feel like I can see more perspective around it. But at the time, I was just absolutely heartbroken that I had to do it. I just didn't want to. I never wanted to experience that with her. I only want to experience life with her. But I could have decided to keep her alive just for a few more days so I wouldn't have to feel the pain of putting her down myself. But then I realized that would have not been aligned with me and like what I wanted, how I want to live my life and how I wanted to treat her and what she deserved. So anyways, I did put her down. It was awful, but I have been able to start to celebrate her life more, especially this week since it was her birthday. I feel like I can really look at her life more than I did initially. Like people would send me pictures and stuff right after she died, and I was just her death completely eclipsed everything. I couldn't even think about her life, and she really had such an incredible life. She almost was 16 as a purebred Labrador. Tawny was supposed to be a service dog. I'm just going to tell you all about her. I'm just catching up. I'm just going to tell you all about her because I feel like we're friends, right? She's supposed to be a service dog for a company called Canine Companions for Independence. They give generally people in wheelchair dogs or people who work with populations that could really use a dog. Like, I actually have a friend in Sacramento who got a dog. She works in a burn unit, and the patients really love having a dog. It helps with their recovery to have a dog to play with and things like that. So kind of all over, like however these dogs can help people. So she came to me. I was her puppy raiser. I was 22 years old when I got her. I really wanted a dog, but I didn't want the lifetime commitment of a dog because, I was 22, And so I got her and I raised her, and my dad helped me tremendously. And then you have to turn them back in when they're about 18 months old. And she went back in and she did really good. She was in the advanced training for a while with the professional trainers, but they ultimately decided not to pass her to be a service dog because they realized she just didn't like working. And there's some themes here about business that I will circle back to. So they don't make the dogs work if they don't like working. They want dogs that love working. And so being her puppy raiser, I had the opportunity to take her back first. And so I did. And she's been with me ever since. She's just been my pet. And she's been with me on, I think we did like 14 moves together. She moved with us across country. All the things, all these big life events. Years I was single. As you may know, if you've listened to my podcast, I was single and it was just her and I. Like, I didn't have a lot of friends for multiple years in my life. I was very, very lonely. It was her and I. She was incredible. She was literally the Mary Poppins of dogs. She was practically perfect in every way. She was just the best dog. People all the time would meet her, especially when she was like a little younger, not in her elderly age, but when she was like 5, 6, 7, 8, still had a lot of energy, still acted like a puppy. People would meet her and be like, oh my gosh, how did you train her all of these things? Not to bark, not to jump up on people, not to chew things, not to steal shoes, not to get into the trash can, not to, all the things that dogs do, especially labs. And I just would be like, I didn't do any of it. And the advanced trainers, the professional dog trainers didn't do any of it either. It was just her. It was just her personality. She was just the best. And I miss her every day. And I probably will miss her every day for the rest of my life. But I was so lucky that I got her for almost 16 years. It was like she gave me the best gift anyone could ever give someone else. And I'm still so heartbroken, but I'm so grateful. Okay, sad part of the episode over. On to some other things. What's been going on with us? So we moved to Georgia. We did it. Our stuff did get here. It was a nightmare. It was like the worst moving experience of my life. Bad. We learned a lot through the process, but it was a really stressful couple of months. We have mostly unpacked. I have probably about 10 boxes to go, and I just can't get myself to unpack them. I actually have a little bit of childcare, which I'm really excited about. I hired a mother's helper, which, if you don't know what that is, it's like I hired a teenager. She's a young teenager who has no experience babysitting but loves children. And she plays with my daughter while I can kind of get things done around the house because we don't have childcare until September when she starts preschool. So that's kind of what's going on with us. My husband's been home so much more. Like, the two main reasons we moved to Georgia is that we could afford to buy a house, which was something that we both really wanted. And it had been years until we could afford to buy a house in California. And the other reason, which was even more important to me, was that my husband would be home more since we'd be out of his base, because he's based out of Atlanta. So it's been so great having him home. Like, it has really been unbelievable. So both of those things have been really, really good. Trying to make friends. It's been slow, but I've made a couple of friends. So that's kind of what's going on with me. I've been reading a lot, watching a lot of reality TV. And I don't know if you've listened to the episode where I talked about Top Chef before, but there was another Top Chef season, and if you listen to Top Chef, then like skip the next few minutes just so you don't hear any of the spoilers if you haven't finished the latest season. But one of the chefs on there just was so inspiring to me. And this is something that I always do is whenever I get inspired by people out in the real world, I take those things back to myself and my business, even if it has nothing to do with my business. Like I'm not a chef. I'm not teaching people how to cook. I'm not cooking for other people. That's not nowhere in my field. But this contestant, Sarah, she owns, I think, some restaurants in, I want to say Kentucky. Anyways, she just had the best, kindest, coolest energy. Like she totally believed in herself, even though her food wasn't, it didn't seem on the outside like if you had read the menu, you're like, okay, like people just were always kind of like unimpressed when she told them what they were going to be eating, but were always blown away when they ate her food. And actually twice in the season, which actually is one of the spoilers, one of the reasons she didn't win is because her meat wasn't cooked all the way through, and both times she knew it. Both times she was like, my instincts are telling me this meat's not cooked all the way through. But she allowed other people to tell her, like, no, this is fine. It's fine. And she went with that and didn't end up winning. She got second place. She totally should have won. If her meat had been cooked through, she would have 100% won. And it made me really think about, like, your business being an esthetician, in my business, working, with estheticians, like having your own business, being a business owner, and like really trusting yourself and not listening to what everyone around you is saying or doing or thinking. Like her menus were nothing like anybody else's. They were so kind of just weird, Her approach was just not classic, right? But she's such a good chef, right? And she was just this unbelievable presence of just like calm and kindness and like certainty, right? And I think about like how I want to operate in my business every day is like that calm, kind, and certain, right? Like just certain in myself and what I do, services I provide, kindness with everything that I do, and calm and just like not freaking out all the time. And that's actually what I do teach my clients is like, how can you kindly tell someone no, right? Because that's a big part of our business. How can you be calm and not be panicking one way or the other if someone cancels, or if you don't have any bookings this week, or if someone's texting you that their skin's freaking out, right? Like how can you maintain that level of calmness and certainty that like you know what you're doing and you're going to figure it out and it's going to be okay, right? Like those are the things that I think we all struggle with the most because we have human brains, right? Like your brain is always going to get information and then always make this decision like without you monitoring it. Your brain is just going to go off onto like how to protect you, how to make sure this never happens again, never feel this pain again. That's like its natural instinct. That's like how we've been wired. Versus like like if you want to manage your brain, manage what's happening, you can like use so many skills that I have learned and I've also teach my clients that just kind of like, okay, like how do I want to think about this? Right? Like like remember she's like serving a dish and the people's faces, like just her talking about it were just not, it wasn't positive, right? It wasn't the face that I would want if I was going to serve someone a dish. And you could just tell she was just like, yeah, it's okay if they don't like it because this is the food that I know. This is the food that I like. This is the food that her customers, people who come to her restaurant like. She was just okay with people not liking her. And then, of course, they always did. And I just really took so much inspiration from that because, again, I have a human brain like you do. And sometimes my brain likes to make a lot of drama and panic about things that are not necessarily there. And yeah, so I loved that. And I hope that was helpful for you. Like, summers can be slow, especially the week of 4th of July. Sometimes like this is where people have lulls. Like, I'm not saying that that's the case for everyone in every industry, but like things things can happen or not happen the way that you want them to or not want you to. And it can be just sometimes really discouraging. And so I encourage you to either go watch Top Chef and see what I mean, or find something like that in your everyday life that can kind of just help remind you and ground you that like you're doing great. Trust in yourself, believe in yourself. You have totally got this. Okay, so those are some things that have been happening with me. I am really excited to be back. I want to focus this rest of the summer on demonstrating what my values are to you again in my business. I feel even more passionate about being very clear with my community about things that I believe in and things that I really feel strongly about, because they are my values, my business values, and I really just want that to be known. So that's definitely coming your way, just learning more about kind of what I want and what I believe for this business. I'm also not taking any clients right now because I don't have childcare, but I will be soon. So you will hear more about that as we get closer to August, September. I'm hoping maybe in August I can figure out to take a couple clients on, but I'm completely reworking my one-to-one client offer because I found that as much as I love my old one-to-one offer, the investment was more than a lot of estheticians could make. And I really want to serve people who can, like all aspects of business, not just people who are super booked. So if you've been wanting to work with me and you haven't been able to afford to, now your chance is coming. I promise you it's super affordable. And what else? That's it for today. I'm just happy to be back. Dip my toe back in the water. If there's something that you have been struggling with your business that I haven't made a podcast about, or maybe you haven't seen, let me know. You can always DM me at esthetician.coach, or you can email me at info@blhbeauty.com. And I will talk to you next week. Bye for now.